Hello and welcome to this recording of Sharperlight. My name is Ben Rogers. I'm a Dynamic 365 Business Central consultant. I also work with Great Plains, and the purpose of this recording is just to give you an overview of Sharperlight. The agenda we're going to look at the connections with Sharperlight. So Sharperlight can connect to both Business Central and Great Plains. It can also connect to other systems as well. So if there's other third-party systems that you work with, the chances are Sharperlight will be able to integrate with that system as well. So I'm going to take you through an example of just building a very simple report, and primarily we'll look at that in Excel because Sharperlight, you can use Excel, but you can also use the web. So there is web functionality as well, and I'll show you a few examples of some web reports, dashboards, and also the write back functionality as well. So we'll go straight into Excel. As you can see, I've got Sharperlight installed and I've got a menu bar up here with various functions, but the one I'm going to focus on is the table. So I'm just going to open the table up, and the table will then take me straight into my Sharperlight window. Now, when we refer to connections, you'll notice here I've got a product and I'm connected to Business Central. If I double click in there, I've also got connections to some other systems as well. So you can see I've got Great Plains in there. I've got a couple of bespoke systems that have been created for specific data warehouse that I was drawing on. But if you're in a position where you may be thinking of migrating, or you have from GP to Business Central, you can connect to both systems. So if you need to produce reports from both systems in one report, that is completely doable using this function. I'm going to stick with Business Central for the purposes of this demonstration. And once I've got my product selected, I can then look at my companies. So I've got a number of companies that are available. I could select a few or handpick a few, completely up to you. I'm going to use Ben Test for the purposes of this. Once we've selected the company, we then get into the tables. Now, I've got a GL entry table here, and if I double click into that field, Sharperlight's quite intuitive. So if you're a user, it's quite easy to find your way around. It's not overly complex with weird and wonderful table names. So if you're working in payables, you come down into purchasing, you've got vendors, vendor card, vendor ledger entry. And if you're familiar with, if you're a regular BC user, you'll know a lot of these phrases and table names, etc. So we're going to work in GL entry for the purposes of this. Once I've selected the table, I've then got some filters, and these are the filters up here, this top section, this header, and I've got a couple of predefined filters that I have to fill out. So it wants an account number and a posting date, and it's defaulted to all, which makes sense because we need to tell the system what we want to get out of this table. So how are we going to filter it? So we'll come up to this section in a minute, but I'm now going to put some output. So you can now start to output what we want to see. So down here, I've got all my outputs. If I want to search for something, I'm not sure of the name. So if I want account number, I can start to type and it will filter down and I can just see that field. So you can double click or you can drag. So I'm going to bring my account number and name, just get rid of the filter there. And I'm just going to bring an amount as well. Then you've got a preview function here. So you can actually look at your reports as you build them before you generate them in Excel. So I'm just going to have a quick preview of this. I've got my GL account number, my account name and my amount. I can format this column if I want to, put some brackets, put this in red. As we're going to use Excel, we'll do the formatting in Excel. So I'll ignore that for now. So I've got a very, very basic report. I could, again, come into my account number. If I want to look at my P&L, for example, I could just scroll down to my first P&L code, which is this one, then just start to pick or do a block, whatever. But there's better ways of filtering it. So the first thing I'm going to do is put an income filter in there just to filter it down by P&L. So I'm just going to use this income balance function. And once you start to use these filters, you'll drag them up and then you'll start to really hone in on what we're trying to get out of the system. So I'm just going to click in there and I'm going to use my income statement. And it's put the I in there, which is the code. Click OK. I want to preview again. It will now start from 3600 because it's ignored my balance sheet. So I've filtered my report down straight away, very, very simply. Using Business Central, obviously, you'll be familiar with posting dates. So we could come in here and we could start to handpick posting dates, etc. Sharperlight's very powerful. It uses commands. So I could put something in like date, OYS for on year start, tab off, and it recognizes that it's going to start from the 1st of the 1st, 23. If I wanted a full year, date, OYE for on year end, 31st of 12th, 2023. So you can build some quite dynamic reports that will run automatically with these filters. You don't need to come in and select a date every time, depending on the type of report you're trying to run. Now, I'm going to actually use a reporting period for the purposes of this report. So I'm actually going to set my posting date to all dates, because I'm actually going to use a reporting period for this report. So I'm just going to look for my reporting period. Found it there. I'm going to drag it up. So I want to generate a report by columns by month. So I can use this period filter, and I could use these arrows to go back, hand pick. I could type in this field, but again, I'm just going to use some commands, period OYS to period OYE, and you'll notice again, it's now recognized those commands and drawn out a full year. So I preview again. That's going to then bring through my 2023 information, and you can see we've got 94,500 in there. What I can now do with this reporting period is, if I come over here onto my amount, just right click, go to options. That reporting period gets given an abbreviated name. It's called REP-PER. As you can see, all of these filters have got abbreviated names, and you can link these filters into outputs. But without getting too complex, I'm just going to link this reporting period and make it a dynamic filter. So I tick it, set as dynamic output, it puts a little marker there, and click OK. Then when I preview, what that will do, it will generate my columns across the top, as you can see. So very, very simple, quite dynamic report generating my full year. If I want to remove the zeros, come back into the header, click options, and in general, I've got suppress 0 rows. So I can click that, preview it again. And I've now got a much more concise report with all of my rows that haven't got any values in being removed. So I'm happy with that. I've got my layout. So all I need to do is click OK. It'll ask for a query name. I'm just going to leave it as the table name that it defaults to. Click OK. And it embeds a sheet into Excel for me. So I've got a ready-made, very simple P&L layout. Then, as I said, just a little bit of formatting in here. So I'll just expand this across a bit, make these a little bit bigger. And then I can just come into this block and it will remember this. So if I refresh the report and more columns get generated or more rows, it's going to remember the formatting that I put in here. So this is just a one-off exercise just to make this look a little bit nicer. So we've got a layout. Now, because we're using Excel, we can actually embed some filters into the sheet or on a front sheet and link them in, and it makes the report a little bit more dynamic. So I'm just going to add some filters in here. I'm going to put my company, which is going to be Ben Test, and start period 2022, let's say 01, end period 2022, say 12, and I'm going to add a dimension filter in here as well. I'm just going to make that all, and you'll see why shortly. So what I want this report to do is actually generate some sheets for me based on some of these filter parameters. So now I've got them embedded in the sheet. Well, what I need to do is just open up the query again. So the query gets embedded in the cell directly above the table, and I can double click on that and open it straight up. Now all I'm going to do is link these filters into my sheet. So where I've got my company, it's hard coded at the moment. I'm just going to link into that cell, and my posting date is going to be all still because we're using the reporting periods. And my first reporting period is going to be my 2022-01 and 012. Now I want to use this dimension to split some sheets out. So I'm going to just add that dimension, which is a cost center dimension in my Business Central setup. So I just need to come down into my selection. There's my cost center code, which is a dimension. I will drag that up, and I'm just going to link that cell into there. So it's now anchored in there. And then I can do a quick preview if I want to, just to make sure it's still going to work, which it does. Go back to my query and click OK. Obviously, this is going to now change because I've changed the date parameters. And as you can see, it's generated a bit more data. It's kept all the formatting. So I'm now in a position to make this a little bit more dynamic. So what I'm going to do is use this splitter function. And I click splitter. And what splitter will do is look at these filters that you've embedded in the sheet and enable you to cascade this out into multiple sheets. So I'm going to use this cost center code, as we can see. And as soon as I select that, there's all my dimension values there. So I've got 5 departments. I can select them all. I've got this option to put a button in there, which will execute. You can name the button. You can change the name of it. Just move it somewhere where it's not going to generate anything on the actual rows. So I'm ready to run this. I can close the tree and just hit that button. And it uses that filter to generate sheets. So I'm now getting a dimensional cost center report, which I could then save down, hard code it, send it across the business, extract, whatever I want to do. And you'll see I've got a tab per cost center. And you can have multiple splits into this as well. I could come back in, remove it, just click on the tree, click on the sheet, and delete, and it'll take me back to where I started. But then I could insert an extra split as well. I could do a company one, and you can see there's my companies. I could handpick a few companies and add another button. So I could name that button company, come up to the top, come out of there, and then run my company split. And then I get a sheet per company. And because we're using a table, if the chart of accounts is different, the dimensions are different, it doesn't matter. As you can see, I've got some different chart of accounts appearing in here. Some are 5 digits, some are 4, but I've now got a sheet per company. So very, very simple to generate a table in Sharperlight. That's one way of generating information. The other way, you might have a static report. So maybe something like this. Again, I've got a sheet. And this is a bit more structured. So I've actually done a layout here. I've got my income, my expenses. It's quite nicely formatted. I've got some colors, etc. And this time I'm just using this value function. So the value function, again, if I use it, is very, very similar. And it just has some filters in it that will link into these cost center codes, period, and company. And the advantage of doing reports this way is once you've got your layout, you can just copy the whole sheet, come into another sheet. And the only thing you'd need to change if your chart of accounts was the same, for example, is just change the company name. And all of these formulas will still be linked to the cost center code, the period. So it's a very, very quick way of having a static sheet per company. This one's got a different chart of accounts. So I've just had to map these chart of accounts against the same rows. But then I've inserted a consolidated sheet as well, just to bring it all together. So you can do your P&L this way, your balance sheet. You could link to GP. You could link to Business Central. Very, very simple to link and produce reports. Similarly, actual versus budget. Again, this is all linked. I've got a hidden column there with my GL code, and it's just looking at the date. And as you can see, this is an actual month and a budget. So it's actually a different table. So if I go into that cell, all this is doing, instead of looking at the GL entry, it's looking at the GL budget entry. And again, it's got the same links, my account number, my reporting period, just to produce a very simple report. Dates are filtered, so I can just come in and change the period name. And the report will refresh, go into those periods and just pull the numbers through. And it's updated. So Excel, very, very simple, very powerful way of creating your reports. The good thing about Sharperlight as well is it supports web functionality. So this is a dashboard. This is a dashboard that I've created with various tabs on it, all real-time data, and it just shows you the power of the visuals that you can use with Sharperlight. So I've got sales as a donut chart, some graphics as you hover over, some customer balances, my top 5 customers, half a pie chart, my most overdue invoices by amount in order, my profit and loss by cost center dimension, my profit and loss by region dimension, and I've got a customer agent report. So again, all real time as I'm posting, paying invoices off, this is going to refresh and constantly update. But you can embed drill throughs in here as well. So if I wanted to know what Ticketmaster's, what the total due was, that 89, I can right click invoice details. It overlays a sheet on the top, and there's my invoice details as well, 89078. I can see the breakdown. The other thing Sharperlight does do as well is you can actually drill straight from here, from Sharperlight into Business Central and open that invoice up. So you can set that up as well. So I could right click on here if it was set up and go straight and open the invoice directly in Business Central. So again, very, very powerful. This is a P&L type layout, and you can see I've got my filters at the top. So I can come in here, I could change company, I could change dates, I could look at different budgets, and they're all linked into these cells. They're constantly going to refresh depending on what I select. And you just hit submit and it will go and pull any data through for that particular parameter. So again, very, very powerful. And as you can see, I've got a couple of drill columns in here as well. So there are drills embedded into these reports. So if I wanted to know what that 23784 was, I could come in, right click, and I've got a couple of predefined drills in here for the month and the year to date. This is a year to date column, so I'll just click on the year to date and I get another sheet open up with that 23784 showing me the breakdown of the invoices. And you can build drills upon drills. You can have a drill from here, you could drill down to another level, all very, very doable via the web functionality as well. And you can embed links as well. So if you actually want to drill from a link, there's the possibility of doing that as well. You can have a little icon like this, or you can actually have a drill button. And you can just click on one of those to open up a drill window, and it takes you straight. Again, this is a dimension drill, so this is showing me that 18,200 by dimension. I can see the breakdown of my department, and I could then drill from there to the transactions. Now, the final thing that also is very powerful with Sharperlight is it pushes data into a system as well. So while we've been showing examples of extracting data, you can also get data into a system via what's called a write back. So this is a sales invoice write back. So the layout of this is a header and a line, and you can see I've got a couple of write back options in here in the buttons. So getting the format right is the part that will take the most time, but once you've got your layout, it's very, very simple to create a simple write back like this and push it straight into a system. So I'll just open up Business Central, and all I'm going to do is execute this write back, and it's going to push these sales invoices straight into my system for me. So I'm in Business Central, and I'm just going to go to my sales invoices, and there should be none there. And there aren't. So I've got no open sales invoices at the moment. So what I'm now going to do is actually push these invoices into Sharperlight via the write back. So I can edit it, I can preview it, but I'm just going to execute it. So I click execute. That will then go ahead, look in the system, just check everything's okay. If there's any errors, they're going to flag. And as you can see, it's done 9 header records and 12 line records. So if I just go back into Business Central and go back into my sales invoices, I should see 9 invoices sat there. And I do. So I've got 9 invoices there ready. They're all open. I can go into one. I could send that, preview it, post it, send it for approval, whatever I need to do. So it's a very, very powerful part of the system, write backs. And you can pretty much write back anything. You can write back budgets into there, chart of accounts, customers, journals, whatever it might be, currencies. So it doesn't just push data in, it does bring data. It does bring data out as well. So it's just something to bear in mind if you're thinking about exploring the option. It's not just a reporting tool, it does also do some integrations. Thanks very much for watching. As I said, my name is Ben Rogers. I'm a Dynamics BC consultant. If you need to contact us, please get in touch, hello@advantage.co.uk, and you can also find us on the website www.advantage.co.uk. Get in